Chains rattle broken, now we rise. Flag in my hand, stars burn the skies. Truth ain't dead, though the liars try. They scream loud, but the words all die. God's watching hands, praise to the throne. Freedom ain't free, blood built this home. Continue freedom, keep it alive. Red, white, blue, we bleed to survive. God bless the brave who fight and strive. Continue freedom, keep it alive. Land of the free, ain't bending the knee. Truth in my veins, it's all I see. Patriots roar, no fear in the fight. Continue freedom, stand in the light.
Okay, guys, another live stream. Here we are. It's Friday night. Happy Friday night to everybody. I hope you all have had a wonderful day. If you're new to the channel, hit all the free buttons down below. Helps out the channel. That's right. Real Cuckachoo. The Real Cuckachoo. Let's go. Is this going to be World War III, guys? Let me know down in the comments. What do you think is going to happen? I've got, in my mind, look, I know I don't mean to belabor the point, but I did spend time in the military, but I was never at the strategic level. That wasn't my level. I never went above operational level. So when it comes to all this strategic planning and things, all I can do is look at the information and give my best analysis and understanding. But I think it's important. The long-term ramifications of this. We've just came out of very recently came out of a 20+ year war on two fronts, in Iraq and in Afghanistan. The American people don't want war, but all indications are Trump is going to do something. What that something is what we're going to talk about tonight, because I've given up on trying to predict him. I can just say that there are long-term ramifications for a prolonged conflict. Before we get into that, I'm going to pull up a couple of headlines just to kind of grease the skids a little bit. Just some good news, not on that topic, but the DOJ charged 30 more people for the St. Paul church storming. This is the one that I talked about where Don Lemon had, he got arrested and there was the whole to-do about it. But this is law and order. This is justice. This is what we were asking for. So I had to share that with you guys. It's a good thing when these people, these disruptors, come in and start making a big mess. Now, Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton testified about his connection to Jeffrey Epstein. And another interesting thing that came out of this was that Bill Clinton, of course, he says that I saw nothing and did nothing wrong. We shall see. But the other piece was he said, no, I have no indication that Trump was involved. Yeehaw. Eventually, they're going to put this to bed. There are people who will die on that hill. That's the only way that their world can be justified is if Donald Trump did something illicit. It's something they're not going to find. We know that when Joe Biden was in office, he had that information. He would have done it. Okay, so there's the two little headlines that just kind of grease the skids with. Let's get into this topic. I want to talk about the conversation being had right now in our space being the conservative space, which we talk about on this channel, is very divided. And it comes down generally when it comes to war, comes down to one thing. And people like Tucker and others, Marjorie Taylor Greene, or, you pick your person, they are blaming all of this movement on Donald Trump. And one of the big names is Tucker Carlson. And another person who's been involved in this conversation was Megyn Kelly. I'm going to start with a video from them. This isn't framing the conflict. We'll get into that. But it's framing the narrative around the conflict and what we are being fed. Because, look, we've got folks that they speak out of both sides of their mouths, and it kind of frustrates me. In this instance, it is these two folks who I've, over the years, really liked. I'm going to play this, and then let's get into it.
No, I consider it a massive blessing that all of my best friends actually do happen to be Jewish. Like, it's a massive blessing, because this kind of like nonstop harassment can actually drive you to like drink. Like, what the hell? This is crazy.
No, I totally agree. I completely
has ever done to either one of us. They are way worse.
Way worse.
And so it's like you have to be reminded every day that no. They don't speak for American Jewish people.
Well, they
American
certainly
Jewish
don't.
people have all sorts of varying views on Israel, on Netanyahu, and on war with Iran, and have no problem with people being critical of those things. This is like an online sect that is in large part paid to push an agenda that includes, you know, cutting people out like you and me, like a canary in the coal mines. Like, this will happen to you. Anybody who goes, if I can do this to Tucker, if I can do this to Megyn, I can do it to all of you, and I will do it relentlessly, try to ruin you, smear you, make it so that you can't even go on X anymore, which is why I refuse to leave there.
And they want to give the impression that they completely control the administration, that they alone decide who goes into the White House. And I've gone to see Donald Trump.
They're literally pushing for you never to be allowed back into the White House right now.
And I've gone 3 times in the last month. Now, why have I done that? I have no real interest in going to Washington. I don't live there anymore. I'm from there, but I don't go there because I don't want to. But I have gone, first because I really like Trump, and I've known Trump longer than Laura Loomer's been alive, probably, and I've always liked him. I've always gotten along with him, and Donald Trump ran on the things that I believe, okay? So, and I campaigned for him. These people did not. I did. So I have a relationship with Trump that is very affectionate and honest, and I'm just going to say that out loud, and I thought, I just want to make the point that, no, I like Trump, and Trump certainly doesn't agree with me on everything, and certainly doesn't follow my instruction, unfortunately, on all kinds of things at all, but I'm an American who knows him and really likes him and has for many years, and I have a right to go there. So I'm just going to make that point. No, you don't control the White House. I'm sorry. Part of this is illusion. They have a tiny minority position in the United States. Mark Levin represents, what, 10% of the American population agrees with Mark Levin. But they're creating this kind of movie set where they're speaking for the majority. They've got an American flag in the background. If you're a true patriot, then you want to send your son to go die for a foreign country and get poorer in the process. Like, it's all insane, but they're creating this illusion that it's real. And my job, I feel like, is to the extent I can, help break that illusion. No, I'm going to walk into the White House, which I've been visiting since I was a child. This is my country. I'm very familiar with this city. I'm very familiar with this building. And I'm very familiar with the guy who occupies the Oval Office right now. And I really like him. And I just want to say that because that alone might help shatter the illusion that they totally control Trump. They do not totally control Trump. That is not true. I've talked to Trump 5 times in the past month. They do not totally control Trump. He listens to them. He listens to others. He listens to Bibi. He also listens to MBS and MBZ. And he listens to a lot of people. They're not totally in control. Sorry. And I just want to remind people of that.
Okay. So a couple of things. And you might be saying, why in the world are you playing Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly talking about this again? Right. Pious Vapor. This is, so Tucker goes on these rants consistently. It's always going to be the next world war. It's always going to be 20,000 people dead. Your sons and daughters are going to die. Your sons and daughters are going to die. And this has been for every move that Donald Trump has made. Could this be one of those situations? Possibly, but we don't know. The other component of this is, you know, he's talking about Mark Levin, who, I've got my own, Mark Levin has frustrated me how he's approached a lot of things, but we're not here to talk about Mark Levin. He's saying that Mark Levin, who is representing Israel or the Jews in America, believes that he has some control over Trump and that he doesn't. This is Tucker saying that. Tucker's also saying that I like Trump and I've always liked Trump. That, though, is not accurate. Let's just say that's not true. So, yeah, I'm seeing comments here, RFE. Yeah, I'll get to the comments in a minute. I'm going to try to keep my train of thought. You guys, I like it when you're all leaving comments down there. But here's the thing. They don't control them, but that is the narrative from the people that are on Tucker's side of this situation. It is that every single war we get into, every single military action that we take is because of Israel and because Bibi controls him or the Jewish lobby controls him. And we all know that that is not the case. Tucker says it out loud that that's not the case, but then they go on to imply that it is. And this is what confuses the whole situation. I do not believe that Donald Trump is controlled by that particular lobby. I don't think that he is controlled by AIPAC. I don't think that he is a stooge of Zionists or whatever these other people want to say. Donald Trump is making the best possible decision he can with the information that he has. And this is a big one. This is the largest deployment of U.S. military personnel in 23 years. And I'm going to reiterate something. I'll probably say it several times throughout this live stream. I don't want another forever war. I was part of those forever wars. I was part of that generation. I'm sure people watching this show were part of that generation. We don't want those forever wars. But there are ways where this could play out, as we saw with the bombing of the Iranian nuclear facility, as we saw with Venezuela, as we saw, with a lot of Trump's actions. He has been a net positive for the decrease of war. He has used it very strategically and very efficiently, that being military might, and not drawing us into a long-term conflict. This is a report from Fox News. I'm going to play this one, then we'll come back.
its massive buildup of U.S. military in the Middle East, with the largest deployment of air and naval assets to the region. Fighter jets are there, also deployed to the area, and the world's most advanced aircraft carrier, the USS Gerald R. Ford, is on the way there. So again, the largest that we've seen since the Iraq War. Axios, Air and Naval. Axios is reporting White House envoy Steve Witkoff says the Trump administration wants an Iran nuclear deal that will remain in effect indefinitely. So no date on this. They don't want to have to keep going back and back and back. No more bites at the apple for Iran. Secretary of State Marco Rubio not mincing words.
I think progress needs to be made. It would be good if progress was made on Thursday. And I would say that the Iranian insistence on not discussing ballistic missiles is a big, big problem. I'll leave it at that.
Okay, so this is clip one. Let's play another clip here. This is really just for the visual of it, but the visual is the size of this and how we know. Let me just give you my contention. My contention is something is going to happen. There's going to be some sort of military action taken because the largest military deployment in 23 years, you know, that's a very expensive move. You're talking about a massive amount of manpower and hardware moving into that region, and it's coming at great cost. A couple of options. One would be it's a very bold feint or a very bold move to try and, what would be the way to put it? To fake them out or to wield a big stick. It's like walking out. The way in my mind, I thought if you were going into a negotiation and you're just sitting there twirling a pistol. Yeah, you want to think about this again? You want to think about this again? And you're just sitting there twirling a pistol on your hand, right? This is kind of what it seems like Donald Trump is doing or could be doing. But I think that there's going to be some sort of a strike because, and I'll play the clips from Donald Trump here in a minute. You can hear it in his voice and you can hear it in his language. We got a super chat, the real Cuckachoo. We have let's see, who looks straight into the camera and light us. We should, okay, there you go. We have an abundance of influential people who look straight into the camera and lie to us. We should be more outraged. Cuckachoo, I could not agree more. I could not agree more. And it makes it so, and thank you so much for the super chat, by the way. Super grateful for that. These people they lie to us, and we're the ones who just want honest information. That's all we're trying to get. But it always comes with a certain bent that is oftentimes based on people's preconceived notions and their biases and whatever. In some cases, it's just hatred that they have for one particular group or another. It should just be factual data. And I will give you my take on factual data. I don't know what Trump is going to do, but I know there's certain scenarios out there we could entertain and we're going to discuss tonight. Thank you so much for that. But that's a great point. We're constantly looking for people that are lying to us. But when they start moving these tankers into position, you know, I think they're the KC-130s, KC-135s. I forget what the nomenclature is for them. But this is preparing for bombers. This is for in-flight refueling, all of that. They're going to keep these aircraft flying over an extended period of time. And this type of buildup is unprecedented. It's larger, obviously, than they used for the attack on. I mean, they used in-flight refuelers when they bombed the Iranian nuclear facility. That was an amazing undertaking. But this is looking like something over a long period of time, or at least the potential for that. When I start seeing those tankers, I start thinking, okay, here we go. This is, now we're putting the pieces into place. Let's listen to what Donald Trump had to say. And you can get his take on the negotiations, how he thinks they are going. I think the military action would tell you. Here's a couple of clips. Let me play this one first.
Is there a risk that strikes could turn into a long, drawn-out conflict in the Middle East?
I guess you could say there's always a risk. You know, when there's war, there's a risk in anything, both good and bad. We've had tremendous luck with myself, Soleimani, al-Baghdadi. Everything's worked out, and then we do the Midnight Hammer and so many others. Everything's worked out, and we want to keep it that way. But we're going to see. Look, it'd be wonderful if they'd negotiate really in good conscience, good faith and conscience, but they are not getting there. So far, Peter, they're not getting there.
And has your team told you that if you use the military now, that there will be regime change right away?
No, nobody's told me that.
Okay, here's one clip. Let me play this next one here. This is from him after he landed in Texas. All this paints a pretty clear picture of what he's thinking. He's frustrated. He's ticked off because there is absolutely no compromise from Iran.
Well, they should make a deal, but they don't want to quite go far enough, and it's too bad. Look, we've been playing with them for 47 years, and that's a long time. They've been blowing the legs off our people, blowing the face off our people, the arms. They've been knocking out ships one by one. And every month there's something else, so you can't put up with it too long. We're not happy with the negotiation. They just don't want to. They don't want to say the key words. We're not going to have a nuclear weapon. They have to say we're not going to have a nuclear weapon, and they just can't quite get there. They want to enrich a little bit. You don't have to enrich when you have that much oil. So I'm not happy with the negotiation.
Yeah, I mean that's another great point that they are a very oil rich nation, and if they weren't run by a theocratic dictatorship, then they've got plenty of oil to keep that country living large for a very long time. Why do you need to enrich uranium? Why you're talking about for nuclear power plants? No, it's entirely unnecessary. You've got enough oil to take you for the next 5 centuries. This is a great point from Pius Vapor. He says, all we need is an end game and bust our ass to get there. This is how we always operate. It's how we should operate. I would say that, an end game, I trust. Again, I keep coming back to it. I trust Donald Trump. I was one of his biggest, not biggest, I wouldn't say that. I was skeptical when we did the strike on Iran. And, I thought, I don't want this to turn into another big war. Is this going to be another big war? But I gave him the benefit of the doubt, though I had my doubts. And he pulled through. Does that mean he's going to bat 1,000? No. If there's one that he's going to mess up, this is one that we don't need him to mess up, because to the point of the very guy I was playing, at the beginning, Tucker Carlson, he made a valid point that when in his interview with Ted Cruz, which was true, that Iran is a much larger country. They are much more developed than Iraq or Afghanistan, which are the two major conflicts that we've most recently been involved in. Does our military have, I'll go through the geography of this here in a minute, but does our country or do our forces from America that are in the region have enough defensive firepower? Are they prepared for the onslaught of attacks from Al-Qaeda, from the Houthis, from the Hezbollah? They are the number one. Iran is the number one state sponsor of terror. And I think I know this is what Donald Trump is talking about. He's saying, we've been dealing with these people for 47 years. For 47 years, they have been pumping money into our adversaries. They have been, and it's not just in weapons. I know that in Iraq, all of the EFPs that were taking off the legs of our soldiers and arms and legs of our soldiers that were killing our soldiers, they were coming from Iran. They were being made in Iran. Iran funded a lot of the weaponry that was used against U.S. forces for 20 years. They do it today, yes, against Israel, but also against our military bases in the Middle East. That's where the money comes from. And if you cut the head off of this snake, unless there is some meaningful change, like to your point, Pius Vapor, if we go in with an end game, then that head of the snake could stay off, at least for a while. It's kind of like the war was always like putting your finger in a bowl of water. There are no bad guys where your finger is because your finger is occupying that space. Wasn't always the case, but by and large, where your finger was, whatever is taking up the space of that water, there is no enemy. But as soon as you take your finger out, it closes back in on itself. This is how these radical Islamic extremists work. There's always another one to pick up the mantle. But if you can stabilize a place like Iran that has all the oil money, that has, boatloads of resources, you hurt them in the long run. So again, I keep wondering if this is a very expensive power play while they're in the middle of negotiations. But the USS Gerald Ford, I'm going to play an Alex Jones clip here in a minute. Let me see if, actually, before I play that one, I'm going to give you kind of this was a great example. It was posted by Eric Doherty talking about our military bases and our military assets in the region. And guys, I'm telling you, this is when something like this pops off, keep your eyes on it. Keep your eyes on it.
Long-term U.S. military bases operating near Iran. You've got several here in the area of Kuwait. You got the Al Udeida Air Base, which is the largest in the entire region. That's in Qatar right here, some around the area of Oman. Heck, you can stretch back to western and southern Turkey as well and find them. All the white dots are the other bases that the U.S. has a military presence in. And you could see it here, right? In Qatar, eastern Saudi Arabia, up here in northern Iraq. So, I mean, the plate is well set now in terms of bases. Now let's talk about the naval buildup, and this has been quite the armada. Earlier today, we got word that the USS Gerald Ford had moved off the coast of Israel, and then the Roosevelt now is near Crete, the island of Crete in Greece. The Canberra and the Michael Murphy are now in the Persian Gulf. All right, they are positioned, as well as the Santa Barbara and the Mitch are now there in the Gulf of Oman. The president talked about having an armada, and that's what's been assembled here now. Nearly surrounding Iran, well to the west and to the south, with Iran perhaps in its sights sometime soon. Jillian Turner is watching the movements of the U.S. Department of State, and she's got more from there now. Jillian?
Good morning to you, Bill. The U.S. Embassy in Israel now says that all non-essential staff, as well as their families, should leave the country if they are able to, if they want to, and it should happen today, Bill. This comes as tension between Washington and Tehran is now ratcheting up by the day. The vice president is going to welcome Oman's foreign minister to the White House shortly to further discuss Iran. This comes after Vance told the Washington Post overnight the Trump team has no intention of engaging in a prolonged war with Iran. The U.S. wrapped third round of nuclear negotiations yesterday in Geneva, a neutral territory. They spoke for many hours and were mediated by officials from Oman. Iran's foreign ministry says this. Take a listen.
Conflicting statements made by some American officials will continue to cast doubts and questions.
Iran says the talks are only focused on nuclear weapons, but the Secretary of State says that's just for right now.
Eventually, we'll have to have conversations about more than just the nuclear program.
Also on the U.S. agenda, Iran's ballistic missile program, its human rights abuses, and support for terrorists. As you mentioned, right now the Pentagon's deployed over a dozen warships and thousands of sailors to the region. 7 days ago now, at the inaugural Gaza Board of Peace meeting, President Trump started the clock.
Now we may have to take it a step further, or we may not.
Okay, this is, I mean, just the strategic positioning of this. I mean, where this looks like, again, it's kind of, I say misleading. It's big ships on the photo, but it's small relative to the size. But this is a lot of firepower, a massive amount of firepower surrounding, not entirely surrounding, but at least on one side. They've got a lot of coverage of Iran with a lot of capabilities. You're talking about, these things they're going to have Tomahawks. Of course, they've got bombers. They've got, F-22s are in the area. I think the number was 11 reported, 11 F-22s. That's not to, there's also, Israel has their own F-22s. And interestingly enough, we can thank them for a lot of the upgrades that we currently have on our systems. The not reverse engineering, but we give them basically stripped down F-22s, and they've given us some pretty gnarly tech that we can put into our F-22s. But nonetheless, I think that this is too big of a move, in my opinion, just IMO, too big of a move to be a scare tactic. It certainly should have some impact. And I thought about collateral damage. What is Iran? They know that a lot of their civilians could be killed if a large scale attack is conducted. They could lose a lot of their civilians. And I thought, well, in reality, they killed 35,000 of their own civilians just for protesting. Are they really all that concerned about it? Probably not. And just like they reported in that Fox News post, this is the post from Mike Huckabee and U.S. Ambassador Mike Huckabee in Israel. This was the post that got my attention right off the bat. It was, okay, everybody, even non-essential personnel, you need to get out of here. Get on a plane and get out of here. Yeah, that's right, Megan. That's exactly what they did. Okay, Kukachu says Rubio could be our next president, talking about Marco Rubio in his speech. He's been a very good statesman. I will admit that. He has been a very good statesman. Hey, Daisy, welcome. Good to have you here. New subscriber. I appreciate you. Welcome aboard. We got a lot of new subscribers. This is one of the threats that it was kind of all over the internet. I think this is the right. Is this the right one? Maybe I pulled up the wrong one. Hang on a second. Alex Jones was talking about it, and he made a very good point. That let's see. Let me make sure I've got the right clip. I think this is the long clip. Yeah, this is like the 10-minute clip. I had a different one. Hang on, let me see if I can find it here. Sorry, you guys bear with me just a second. He was on talking to Jack Posobiec, and he made a very short case. This one was like an 11-minute video. I'm not going to play that one. And Jack Posobiec, I always forget how to spell that guy's name. They were talking about the hypersonic missiles that China has apparently sold to Iran, and if they have that capability, I can't find it. Let's see. Initially shut down. Info. No, that's not it. Let me see if I can find that one here. Dadgummit, I meant to grab that. Well, anyway, so the argument, I'll just give you the explanation of it. You'll just have to listen to me instead of Alex Jones. I know everybody loves to hear Alex Jones, but I'll give you my rundown of it, and it's basically copying him. That this is, this is a test bed, a potential test bed of Chinese-developed hypersonic missiles that are meant to take out ships. And if China has sold them to Iran, and Iran uses them on something like the Gerald Ford, which is the crown jewel of the U.S. Navy. This is the most sophisticated aircraft carrier on the planet, and they are able to turn that into a Pearl Harbor type situation where they sink this massive ship, then A, it's proof of their technology, and B, it's a win in the PR war for Iran. It's a win in the PR war for China. And there's all kinds of chaos that can come from that. And it will most certainly lead us into larger scale conflict. You sink an aircraft carrier, and that's just what happens. But this was the argument Alex Jones was making. And, people were criticizing the fact that the Gerald Ford was parked off the coast of Israel. And they said, why? Well, of course, we're just here to protect Israel. We're here to protect Israel. Well, let's look at the geography of the region. And I think that anybody with an IQ above room temperature would know why that is. Where else are you going to put it? Because Israel, as much as people hate to admit, is our most sophisticated, well-defended ally in the region, and our only true ally in the region. So this is the place where we have got a massive amount of defensive firepower, and you're going to park the crown jewel of your Navy off that coast, not off the coast of Syria? Is that where we're going to put it? No, I think not. That would be a stupid move. But as they were reporting, as Fox News was reporting, I guess the Gerald Ford has pulled out and they've moved in. I forget which one they said. The Ayatollah, we have to remember who the person is that we're going up against here. And the Ayatollah, this is recently, by the way, he hasn't really changed his tune.
بعضی از این حرفایی که در این سفر رئیس جمهور آمریکا به منطقه مطرح شد لایق جواب دادن نیست اصلا. اینقدر سطح حرف پایینه که مایه سرفکندگی گوینده حرف و مایه سرفکندگی ملت آمریکاست. اونا رو کار نداره.
Those people are there under duress, I'm almost certain, but let's go ahead.
لکن یکی دو جمله رو باید روش توجه بکنیم. ترامپ گفت که میخواد از قدرت برای صلح استفاده کنه. دروغ گفت.
Did you notice that's like their applause break? He says something and there's a pause and it's like, do it now, like an applause break in a speech.
ایشون و مسئولان آمریکایی دولت‌های آمریکا از قدرت استفاده کردن برای قتل عام غزه، برای جنگ افروزی در هر جایی که بتوانند، برای حمایت کردن از مزدوران خودشون.
Okay, so he is saying that Trump is stirring up war wherever he can find it, that he's using his, this again, this is indoctrinated. These people are indoctrinated. This is speech that is, I'm sure, played on a loop in loudspeakers in all their mosques, that Donald Trump is this evil guy, this guy, this nefarious dude who's, you know, perpetrating war all over the world. Meanwhile, Donald Trump has been ending wars all over the world. This is one that it's why this one's kind of an anomaly. You know, you could talk about the Nagorno-Karabakh, that one, you know, but Azerbaijan and places up there, he's been negotiating peace there. In Cambodia, I mean, all over the world, Donald Trump has been ending wars and conflicts. But this is one that has far-reaching implications. Let's not forget, we know how many people came across the southern border. The girl that, what's the woman's name? Sarah, I cannot remember now. She's been on Sean Ryan several times. She was an Intel analyst. She goes by Superbad, I think was her code name. And she has talked about this, that the number of radicals that have come into the U.S. is, you know, it's in the 4-digit range. We don't know exactly how many. But there's the funding for weapons or you know, whatever it takes to conduct some sort of an attack here in the U.S., that stuff comes from Iran. These people were trained by Iran. And in the next administration, so think about Trump after when he's out of office, if we were to get a Democrat in again and people are coming across the southern border, who do you think is going to be funding the travel of the radicals into the United States? It's going to be this same place. Just like Trump said, it's been 47 stinking years. And he's trying to find a way around it, trying to find a way to end it. And I, again, as a person who's, like I say, I don't like war. I don't want war. I'm not a war hawk by any stretch of the imagination, but I've also matured enough over my 45 years on this earth to realize that, you know, it's not that you never have war. War is a component of human existence. There's evil in this world. There's good in this world. And sometimes it is necessary to fend off evil. If Trump can do this without firing a shot, that would be great. If Trump can do this with only, you know, whether it's air assets, if it's long range strikes with TLAMs or whatever else or tomahawks or whatever he wants to use, that's another story as well. But make no mistake, these people on our side are going to continue to tell you that it's one thing, that it is going to be World War III. I don't think it's going to. I used a title. It was hyperbolic, but that was intentional because this is what we're hearing. They're saying, oh, the man I supported, the man who called out the truth about WMDs in Iraq and declared no more foreign wars. Now, for some reason, Trump has joined the neocons and will soon go to war against Iran with the same BS excuses. So on one hand, they say Donald Trump is bought and paid for and controlled by Israel. On the other hand, you hear a person of their same ilk say, I can say for certain that he's not. People are lying to you. They're lying to us, guys. I wonder if this was the clip I was looking for. I want to get to some comments here in a minute. I really want to hear what you guys think. Here, this is a separate Alex Jones clip. I think this might have been the one I was thinking of before. Let's play it.
But since this war with Iran seems to be popping off in just a moment, I'd love to get your take on it. What does it mean for where the country is headed? Clearly, the American First Movement doesn't want more quagmires and more forever wars.
Well, if you remember 2 weeks ago, Trump started evacuating people out of different embassies over the Middle East and was looking like they were going to strike them. But now we know that was to get intelligence to see where the Iranians sent weapons. It was to pick up signals intelligence, probably. This time it looks like they are getting ready to hit because the negotiations have fallen through and Iran is refusing to give up what the West says is its nuclear program. But even people like the founder of Blackwater, who's really smart, Eric Prince, has said he's a fan of the mullahs, but regime change isn't certain, and this could really cause some major problems. But regardless, I'm no fan of the mullahs myself. And so I would like to see them removed. That it is a dictatorship over their people. They're very unpopular. But China has shipped a lot of anti-ship missiles that our experts believe will be able to get through to the aircraft carriers. The question is, can the Iranians forward deploy them enough to get the Gerald R. Ford in the Mediterranean? But the other aircraft carrier is over by Iran and can be hit. And so if Iran does hit the aircraft carrier, we'll go to full war with Iran, and that could potentially lead to World War III because it has a defense deal with China, North Korea, and Russia. So that's really some of the major dangers here. But as you said, the massing of forces there is much bigger than what we saw last year during the little 7-8 day operations we saw between Iran and Israel. So this is a very, very dangerous moment in history. And from all of my sources, it's really up to Trump. Up until the last minute, he could decide to give the order or not give the order. If you remember, we were told 5 or 6 times that we were going to go into Venezuela and that tomorrow would be the day. And that kind of got them to where they were complacent. And then finally, when it did happen, we caught them with their pants down. And of course, the U.S. military, regardless of what you thought of that, did an excellent, really almost perfect job. And so that's what we're looking at right here. This is a big deal.
Okay. Again, I hate to sound like a broken record, but my biggest fear, well, first off, I think that this is too big of a move for it to be, for there to be no, be like lighting a fuse and the firework never goes off. You spend a lot of money on the firework and it's a dud. I don't think that's the case. I also don't think that Trump is a war hawk and Trump doesn't want to just go in there all willy-nilly and stir up a hornet's nest. But I also think there are very strategic reasons for him to take some sort of action in Iran. Aside from it being a theocratic dictatorship, we're not the world police, shouldn't be the world police, and fixing every broken country. If that's the case, that's all we would do. But when they do pose a threat to us, which they do, regardless of what other people will tell you, namely because of their proxies and the people that they are supporting, not just in that region, but all around the globe, this would have, if there is regime change, a net positive impact globally. So we'll see. I think something's going to happen. My guess, again, just my own speculation, in the next 24 hours is what I believe. Something will happen in the next 24 hours. There's also reports that came out, and I didn't pull the footage for it, but there's reports that Israel has already started preemptive, I think they were jets. They were basically bombing cache sites in Lebanon, and all indications are they would be doing that in order to limit the supply of munitions that are going to be fired at them once something does pop off, because that's the retaliation. The retaliation in that region is going to be against Israel. Israel has the Iron Dome, the ability to protect themselves, but they're doing preemptive. This is alleged. I don't know this for certain, but the word on the street and what we're seeing some clips. I couldn't verify if they were, if those clips had been filmed recently, but those preemptive strikes are being done on cache sites in places like Lebanon. That would make sense if something's going to happen. Kind of like you would do in the military, it would be called SEAD. It's suppression of enemy air defense. If you're getting ready to go into an area, you have a specific mission that is meant to suppress or attack the air defense so that you can maintain air superiority as you're going in. And that seems to be what they are doing in Israel, only for the rockets that could potentially be hitting them. I don't know. It's wild. We've done regime change. You guys know that. And I've complained about it, whether it was, Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, Libya, we've done the regime change thing. And typically we are pretty stinking bad at it. That's what gives me the heebie-jeebies. Let's get to some comments. I knew this stream was going to be a bit shorter than usual tonight. I'll end on a positive note. I guarantee that. Well, China doesn't want war with the U.S. They have proven Iran isn't worth fighting with. Right. Well, so here's the other piece. This is China going to be, is Taiwan going to be susceptible? If we get into a longer conflict, is that an opening for China to attack Taiwan? I think that there's a lot of people saying that, those people, they say it out there on the internet. I don't necessarily think that would be the case. Because it would take a while. You have to think, if we were to get into a conflict, or when we get it, let's just say when we get into a conflict, and it's mostly air power, maybe doubtful some ground incursion, but we're doing long range strikes into Iran. That's not the opportunity for China to attack. If we were to get boots on the ground, then it's still not the trigger for China to attack. China needs to make sure that we are fully engulfed in a situation over there before they could say, all right, now enough of their military might is dealing with a mess over in Iran. Now we can go in and take Taiwan. So people are acting as though those people on the internet say, if we do this, as soon as this starts, China's going to attack Taiwan. And that's just stupid. That doesn't make any sense at all. At least not in my feeble brain. Maybe I'm the dumb one. Russia and China are extremely weak and they will not retaliate. Turns out propaganda just doesn't suffice. Yeah. He definitely want to put pressure for a deal. Yeah. I have zero doubt that he'll use it. I mean, he's already used it once, right? He's proven that he's willing to sling a little lead if he has to. But full-blown incursion, I don't think he wants that. Despite what people are going to say, I believe October trial or something bigger. That's an interesting. I've heard this before too. We have to understand war is necessary to stop evil, right? It should be. It should be our last resort. Always should be our last resort. The October 7th thing, this is what Superbad, Sarah, I wish I could find her name. Let me see if I can find it. Sarah on the Sean Ryan podcast. She is amazing. You need to go watch it on the Sean. Let's see. And I'll pull up a picture of her so that you can find it, because she started a frequent blog and posting. Sarah Adams is her name. So Sarah Adams, Sean Ryan podcast. Let me see if I can get it before the thumbnail pops up and it pauses. Well, nope, that's not it. Let me find an image of her, and I'll just download that. Here you go. So this is her. Here you go. Sarah Adams, Sean Ryan podcast. And she's been on a ton of times. I know this is a blurry picture. I apologize. But you guys need to go listen to her. She's so knowledgeable about these cells, these Islamic extremist cells. She knows them by name. She has followed them, tracked them forever and a day. And she's, I think, made like 5 appearances on the Sean Ryan podcast. But her biggest fear is an attack here in the U.S. They're already here. We know the extremists are here in the United States. We talked about it so many times that an open border isn't about rainbows, kittens, and puppies, and everybody's loving each other, and not everybody coming across the border is a lady wearing a little bonnet, in her raggedy clothes carrying a baby. These are military-age males coming from countries that hate us. So there is an insider threat here in the United States that we have to be aware of. Let's see. Trump is the right man for this job. He cares enough to not put... I 100% agree. He's a guy who hates war. He doesn't walk softly. He carries a big stick. He wields that stick when he has to, and he'll, slap the petulant child across the backside whenever he has to, but he doesn't want to use it. It's his last resort. Let's see. Oh yeah, she's awesome. Did an episode. Yeah. Oh yeah, she did one on Tatum's show too. Yep. Israel just makes sense to me. The two countries that have been bent on peace for decades. Well, the U.S. hasn't. I have to push back on that a little bit. The U.S. has not. The U.S. has been, and I only say that because we could have gotten out of those forever wars long before we did. And Trump learned from those past regime change examples. Yeah. Venezuela is a great example. This is successful so far. No loss of American life, and man, just shock and awe, which is how we should have handled our other conflicts. We went into Iraq and rolled over the Iraqi army. This should have been, defeat who you're there to defeat. But there is a component that we cannot deny of the military-industrial complex that is salivating at the opportunity to get us into a long-term conflict. Where I put my faith in Trump is to fend those people off. Eisenhower said it, and I quote him all the time, and in 1961 in his farewell speech. If you haven't listened to it, I highly recommend it. You can find it on YouTube. He gave his farewell address after leaving the presidency, and in his farewell address, he said that his greatest fear was a military-industrial complex and a scientific and technological elite that would be leading this country astray. And though he warned about it, it actually came to fruition. And this is why they pushed back against Donald Trump, because Donald Trump wasn't bought and paid for by them. Donald Trump wasn't in the hip pocket of, Halliburton and General Dynamics and Boeing and Lockheed. So this is what it looks like right now. I feel like it looks like now is a president who is not bought and paid for by those people, who is not beholden to those people, who will flip them the bird when they come into his office and say, do this because our stock prices are down. And he says, absolutely not. I'm not going to put our sons and daughters in that situation. But if he is given intel from, the cabinet that he has, which is loyal to him and is loyal to the American people and is not bought and paid for, he'll take that intelligence, can trust it, and he can make the right decision, hopefully. But we got to give the dude a lot of credit. Let's see. Iran is nothing like the others. At least he will be hopeful more than like Japan and Germany and come up better before. And I think with Reza Pahlavi, the crown prince, it will happen. Iran is nothing like the others. At least it will hopefully be more like. Iran is just powerful. That's the thing. I say powerful. They're not on the same level we are, but it's not the same conflict. It's not like going and rolling over the Iraqi army. That's not what we would be up against. It would be far bloodier. So it's balancing the desire for peace, the desire to have the proxies squashed so that they don't destabilize entire regions of the world, to include our allies, that the funding is cut off for the people that seek to do the U.S. harm. You have to remember, we are still considered a Christian country. This is why people like Iran hate us and they chant death to America, death to America. Lebanon, Syria, Egypt, all these places were Christian countries. There's a lot of countries, most of those countries in the Middle East used to be Christian countries, and this is part of the move. It's the slow and methodical destruction of those. How long can you fend that off? And even if it's destabilizing America from the inside, it's what they're doing now, what they're trying to do now. How can we eliminate the funding? The number one funder is Iran. To doubting Thomas on Venezuela, some felt he should remove VP and military. No, keep the regime. Yeah, so to doubting Thomas on Venezuela, some felt he should be removed. Maduro's I guess what you're saying is when we went in, people were saying, is there going to be complete regime change? And the answer was no. We just wanted Maduro out. I think if I hear it right, it's kind of like de-Baathification in Iraq. We took out is like de-Baath. The Baath Party was completely eliminated. But when you eliminate the entire Baath Party, you are eliminating everybody who's the educated folks. Basically, is what it was. I hate to say it that way, but that's what it was. The people who understand how governance worked, the people who were educated, the people that went to Oxford and Yale and wherever else. You got rid of all those people when you could have just removed the head of the snake, put them in a situation, hold them accountable through diplomatic means post-war, and you've still got the smart people in there who can run the country. We didn't, and we saw it in locales all around Baghdad, that you would have these absolute knuckleheads running the area, and all they were doing was stealing the money. The money's getting pumped into rebuilding, nation building, and they just take it, line their pockets, and buy a nicer house. And they had zero idea how to run the country or even how to run their little mahalas. Please show me again aggressive military move by the Chinese in the last. Yeah, there you go. It's a fair point. There haven't been. You know, there was a lady I was listening to. She was, I think, Chinese, but she had been studying the population in China. And her estimate was that it's nowhere near the, 1 billion, 1 point something billion people, that it was closer to like 500 million. So they've overinflated their numbers because of the impacts from the one-child policy. Let me see if I can find that, because it was interesting. I don't know if it's true, so but it is fascinating. It would be fascinating if so. China is not as big as we think. Let me see if I can find her. This might be the one. Chinese. This Chinese is an internet question. Yeah. Okay. Here it is. Look at that. Came right up. Listen to this. This is very, very interesting. Let's pull it up.
You are ready for the number?
Yes.
At one point, I projected under 400 million.
What?
500 million. Under 500 million.
Under 500 million.
Mm-hmm.
So you think that they have a very similar population to the United States and China?
Yes.
Wow.
There's 1 billion people missing.
And this goes back to what we were saying in the beginning or earlier in the podcast with all of the fake IDs and all of this stuff being found out.
Yeah, there's possibly 1 billion people missing. It's not a demographic question, Danny. It's a mathematical question. Let me ask you. It takes a couple to have 2 children to replace themselves, right? Think about it.
Yes.
If every couple produces 2 children,
the population stinks level.
right? So, do you know how many children does every woman needs to have in her lifetime in order to triple its population in 50 years?
To triple its population in 50 years, you need to have what? Let me guess. I'm terrible at math.
I'll give you the answer because I asked AI. It's a crazy mathematical. If a country needs to triple or grow its population by 2.5 times, let's just say 2.5 times.
Okay.
Over a span of 50 years.
5 kids.
Each woman, you're right. Each woman needs to give birth on average between 4.5 to 5.5 children.
Wow.
Okay. Now, China grew its population officially from 1950. That's when the CCP took over to control. Okay, China's population in 1950 was about 500 million. In the year 2000, 50 years later, China's population was about 1.27 billion. Okay, so it grew 2.5 times, right? From 500 million to 1.27 billion. That's 2.5 times over 50 years. Chinese women did not have, on average, have 5 children because of the one-child policy.
Yes.
Because of the Great Famine. Because of the Great Famine, tens of millions of people died. Because of Cultural Revolution. So China, from one political movement to another, and then to almost 4 decades of single-child policy, there's no way Chinese women had 5 kids.
That's interesting. When I first heard that, I thought, I always knew the one-child policy. They were doing forced abortions on women in China. Accidental pregnancy. You have that kid, and no, you get pregnant. They would literally strap women down to beds and force them to abort their children. And there were special dispensations for male versus female, all kinds of just really gnarly stuff. So how does a country that does that still grow their population? The replacement rate, and I don't recall where I got the stat from. It was a study it was a sociological study that was done saying 1.9 is basically well, let me put it this way. To maintain your population, you have to have 2 kids. 2 kids keeps you steady. 2.1, 2.2 is being your average is when your population can continue to grow, as long as it's more than the number of people having kids. And the U.S. is at 1.9. And 1.9 is the lowest rate ever for a society to recover. But there's other European countries with replacement rates of 1.6, 1.5. Those countries are effectively gone, right? So China, on the flip side of that, was in population decline during the one-child policy, and it was because of socialism. This is what socialism does. We got to feed the people. There's a lot of mouths to feed, and, well, you just got to get rid of the people if you want to have enough resources to feed them. So they said, well, stop having kids. Everybody stop having kids. And now they hit the replacement problem. But their population continues to grow. It makes 0 sense. So is China, which is still sealed up relatively tight, is it as large as they say it is? Are they fudging the numbers? And is that why they're not as aggressive militarily? Because, I don't know. Yet the U.S. does. You are 100% right. Megan said this. The U.S. needs to start making babies. You're absolutely right. And here's the flip side of this for the immigration problem is they do. The Muslim families have, most other countries, when they come here, they all have kids. They're all well above replacement rate. And sometimes in some places, their replacement rate is 3 or 4 to our 1.9. People get bred out. It's crazy. Okay. Guys, I appreciate it. I know this was a shorter live stream than usual. Let's see. Made people want males too. Yeah, that's what it was. So they wanted more males. Yeah, and then you get a flip in the male-female ratio, and now everything is skewed. A bunch of men that can't find women. Yeah, how do you grow a population like that? Maybe they're just lying. I don't know. Does anyone remember a huge Iraqi protest by their civilians? Like, what happened? Yeah. Okay, guys, I appreciate you all. Thank you so much. Please, on your way out, feel free to hit all of those free buttons below. It really helps the channel. I'm hoping I get some rewatches on this one. This topic, tonight, Candace Owens is playing another one of her videos. I'm going to hit that tomorrow. I'm going to hit her last 2. So I'll hit the one from yesterday and the one tonight, and I'll give you guys a recap on that one. God bless you guys. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you all so much. And I'm going to give a shout out to our #1 chatter tonight, Real Kukachu. I appreciate you. I appreciate your super chat. That was awesome. I appreciate all my return guests. Y'all are awesome. I have one of the best chats on the internet, I swear. You guys are great. In fact, I think I've highlighted just about everybody that was on here tonight. I have Kukachu, Megan, Pious Vapor. That's interesting. Pious, I don't know. I guess that's how you pronounce that. Daisy, welcome. You're the new one. Colossus Word. Let's see. RFE. I appreciate y'all. Thank you. Have a great night. I'll see y'all tomorrow.